sleep study.
The ocean covers over 70% of our planet's surface, yet we've explored less than 5% of it. In that vast, dark expanse beneath the waves, stories emerge that challenge everything we think we know about the sea. Stories of ships that vanished without explanation, of experienced divers who simply disappeared, of entire crews that sailed into the blue and were never seen again. Tonight, we're diving deep into the most mysterious disappearances the ocean has ever claimed. These aren't just maritime accidents or equipment failures. These are cases that defy logic, challenge science, and leave investigators with more questions than answers. Cases where the evidence doesn't add up, where experienced professionals made decisions that seem impossible, where the sea itself seems to have swallowed all traces of what really happened. I've spent months researching these disappearances, diving through declassified reports, interviewing maritime experts, and piecing together timelines that most people never get to see. What I found will change how you think about the ocean forever. Because in the deepest parts of our planet, where sunlight has never touched the seafloor, something is happening that we don't understand. Over the next 2 hours, we'll explore 25 of the most baffling deep-sea disappearances ever recorded. From modern cargo ships equipped with the latest technology to seasoned research teams who knew these waters better than anyone. Each story builds on the last, revealing patterns that shouldn't exist, connections that make no sense, and evidence that points to something far stranger than simple accidents. But here's what makes these cases truly unsettling. Every single one involves experienced professionals. These weren't amateur sailors or weekend fishermen caught off guard by bad weather. These were people who understood the ocean, who respected its power, who followed every safety protocol. And yet they vanished as completely as if they had never existed at all. The first disappearance we'll examine happened just 18 months ago. A state-of-the-art research vessel called the Meridian Deep was conducting routine oceanographic surveys in the North Atlantic. The crew of 12 included some of the world's leading marine biologists, equipped with technology that could map the ocean floor in real time and communicate with satellites from anywhere on Earth. Dr. Elena Vasquez was the mission leader, a woman who had spent 15 years studying deep ocean ecosystems. She'd made this exact same journey dozens of times before. Her team was investigating unusual sonar readings that had been detected 3 weeks earlier, anomalies that didn't match any known geological formations. The morning of March 15th started like any other research day. The crew completed their safety checks, confirmed their position with coastal authorities, and began deploying their deep-sea scanning equipment. The weather was perfect, visibility was excellent, and all systems were functioning normally. At exactly 11:47 a.m., the Meridian Deep sent its routine check-in to the research station. Dr. Vasquez reported that they had reached their target coordinates and were beginning the descent of their primary scanning probe. Everything was proceeding according to plan. That was the last communication anyone ever received from the vessel. When the ship failed to check in at the scheduled 3 p.m. contact, the research station initially wasn't concerned. Equipment malfunctions and communication delays were common in deep ocean research, but when 6 p.m. passed with no word, and then 9 p.m., emergency protocols were activated. The Coast Guard launched a massive search operation at first light. What they found defied explanation. The Meridian Deep was located exactly where it should have been, floating peacefully on the surface. The engines were still running, all equipment was operational, and there were no signs of damage or distress. But the entire crew had vanished. Personal belongings were left behind. Meals were half finished in the galley, and the ship's logs showed normal operations right up until the moment the crew disappeared. Most puzzling of all, the deep-sea probe they had been deploying was found floating at the surface, its cables severed cleanly, as if cut by something impossibly sharp. The investigation that followed lasted 8 months, and involved maritime experts from 6 different countries. They examined every inch of the vessel, analyzed every piece of equipment, and interviewed everyone who had been in contact with the mission. The official report concluded that the disappearance was unexplainable given the available evidence. But there was something the official report didn't mention. Something that only came to light when I spoke with one of the investigators off the record. The ship's sonar had recorded something in the moments before the crew vanished. Something massive moving beneath the vessel. Something that shouldn't have been there. Dr. Vasquez and her team weren't the first to encounter whatever lurks in those depths. 6 months earlier, a commercial fishing vessel called the Northern Star had reported similar sonar anomalies in the same general area. The captain, James Morrison, was a 30-year veteran of these waters who knew every reef, every current, and every seasonal pattern. Morrison had been tracking a large school of fish when his sonar picked up something unusual. According to the ship's logs, which were recovered later, he described it as a structure moving along the ocean floor, something too large and too geometric to be natural. He changed course to investigate, reporting his findings to the fishing fleet coordinator. The Northern Star's final transmission came at sunset. Morrison reported that he was directly above the anomaly and was preparing to deploy underwater cameras for a closer look. He mentioned that his fish finder was showing readings unlike anything he'd ever seen, patterns that suggested the structure was somehow generating its own sonar pulses. Search teams found the Northern Star 3 days later, drifting empty in international waters. Like the Meridian Deep, the vessel was completely intact with no signs of struggle or emergency. The crew of 8 had simply vanished, leaving behind their personal effects and a ship's log that ended mid-sentence. The underwater cameras Morrison had been preparing to deploy were found on deck, still in their protective cases. But the ship's main sonar array had been damaged in a way that investigators couldn't explain. The equipment looked as though it had been exposed to some kind of intense pressure wave, yet there were no corresponding signs of damage anywhere else on the vessel. What connects these 2 disappearances, and the 23 others we'll explore tonight, isn't just their location or the mysterious circumstances. It's the pattern of evidence they leave behind. Evidence that suggests these crews didn't just disappear randomly. They were taken deliberately and systematically by something that understands human technology well enough to avoid leaving traces. The third case brings us to the research submarine Benthic Explorer, a cutting-edge vessel designed to operate at depths where few humans had ever ventured. Dr. Marcus Chen, the expedition leader, was investigating reports of unusual geological activity along the Mariana Trench, the deepest part of Earth's oceans. Chen's team consisted of 5 specialists, each with decades of experience in deep-sea exploration. Their mission was to collect samples from recently discovered hydrothermal vents and document any new species that might have evolved in the extreme environment. The submarine was equipped with enough life support for 2 weeks and communication systems that could reach the surface from any depth. The descent began normally, with regular check-ins every 30 minutes as the Benthic Explorer made its way toward the ocean floor. At a depth of 8,000 meters, Dr. Chen reported discovering formations that didn't match any known geological processes. His excitement was evident in the radio transmissions as he described structures that appeared to be artificially created. The final communication from the submarine came from a depth of nearly 11,000 meters, deeper than any human had ever traveled before. Chen's voice was strained, almost whispering, as he reported that they had found something extraordinary. Something that was clearly not natural, something that seemed to be responding to their presence. The surface support ship waited for the scheduled check-in 30 minutes later, but it never came. Emergency ascent procedures were initiated, but the submarine's transponder had gone silent. Deep-sea rescue operations were launched immediately, using every available piece of technology to locate the missing vessel. What they found challenged everything we thought we knew about the deep ocean. The benthic explorer was discovered on the seafloor, resting upright as if it had been carefully placed there. The hull was intact, all systems were functional, but when rescue teams finally managed to bring it to the surface, they found it completely empty. The submarine's internal cameras had recorded the crew's final moments, footage that was classified immediately and has never been released to the public. According to sources familiar with the investigation, the recordings showed the crew suddenly stopping their work and moving toward the submarine's exit hatch, as if responding to some kind of signal or command. The water samples Dr. Chen had collected in those final moments contained microscopic organisms unlike anything in the scientific record. When analysed, these organisms showed signs of artificial modification, as if they had been deliberately engineered for purposes that our current understanding of biology couldn't explain. Each of these disappearances shares common elements that become more disturbing the deeper we examine them. Experienced crews vanishing from intact vessels, advanced technology failing in ways that shouldn't be possible, and evidence of something in the deep ocean that seems to be actively concealing its presence. The fourth case takes us to the cargo ship Atlantic Pioneer, a massive vessel carrying routine supplies between continents. Captain Sara Rodriguez had been sailing these routes for 12 years without incident. Her crew of 24 was considered one of the most professional in the commercial shipping industry. The Atlantic Pioneer was equipped with GPS tracking, satellite communication, and radar systems that could detect objects miles away. When the ship entered a region known for deep ocean trenches, everything seemed normal. The weather was calm, visibility was good, and all equipment was functioning perfectly. At 2 a.m. on a clear night, the ship's automated systems sent a routine position update to the shipping company's tracking center. The vessel was exactly on course, making good time toward its destination. But when the next automated update failed to arrive 4 hours later, concern began to grow. Initial attempts to contact the ship by radio went unanswered, but this wasn't unusual in areas where atmospheric conditions could interfere with communications. However, when satellite phone calls also failed to connect, and GPS tracking showed the ship had stopped moving, emergency protocols were activated. The Atlantic Pioneer was found drifting 18 hours later, its engines shut down and all lights extinguished. When the Coast Guard boarded the vessel, they discovered something that made no sense. The entire crew had vanished, but their quarters showed no signs of hasty departure. Beds were made, personal items were organized, and the galley was clean and prepared for the next meal. Most puzzling was the ship's cargo hold. The containers that had been secured for transport were found rearranged in a pattern that served no practical purpose, as if someone or something had been searching through them methodically. Yet the cargo manifests showed nothing was missing, and the container's electronic seals hadn't been tampered with. The ship's black box recorder captured something extraordinary in the hours before the crew disappeared. Deep underwater sounds picked up by the hull's acoustic sensors that matched no known marine life or geological activity. These sounds seemed to be coming from directly beneath the vessel, rising from depths that should have been empty ocean. When acoustic experts analyzed these recordings, they discovered something that challenged our understanding of underwater communication. The sounds contained patterns that suggested they were artificially generated, structured like a language but using frequencies that human ears couldn't detect without electronic assistance. Captain Rodriguez and her crew weren't the only ones to encounter these mysterious deep-sea signals. Over the past 5 years, dozens of vessels have reported similar acoustic anomalies in areas above deep ocean trenches. Most crews dismiss them as equipment malfunctions or unusual whale songs, but the pattern of disappearances suggests something far more significant. The fifth case involves the research vessel Deep Current, which was investigating reports of unusual bioluminescent activity in the Pacific Ocean. Dr. Amanda Foster, a marine biologist specializing in deep-sea organisms, led a team of 8 researchers on what should have been a routine sample collection mission. Dr. Foster had been studying deep ocean ecosystems for over 20 years and had never encountered anything that couldn't be explained by known scientific principles. Her team was equipped with state-of-the-art submersibles and sampling equipment designed to operate at extreme depths where few forms of life could survive. The mission began with the discovery of bioluminescent organisms that were creating light patterns unlike anything in the scientific literature. These creatures seemed to be communicating with each other using complex sequences of flashes, creating displays that were visible from the surface even in daylight. As the research team deployed their equipment to collect samples, they noticed that the organism's behavior was changing. Instead of the random patterns they had observed initially, the creatures began forming geometric shapes and moving in coordinated groups. It was as if they were responding to the presence of the research vessel. Dr. Foster's final log entry, recorded just before the team disappeared, described the organisms as showing signs of intelligence that shouldn't have been possible given their apparent simplicity. She noted that they seemed to be studying the research equipment just as intently as the humans were studying them. The deep current was found floating empty 3 days later, all equipment intact, but the crew nowhere to be found. The sample containers they had been using were discovered on deck, filled with organisms that died the moment they were brought to the surface, as if they couldn't survive outside their deep ocean environment. What made this disappearance particularly unsettling was the discovery that the ship's underwater cameras had captured footage of the seafloor during the incident. The recordings showed structures that appeared to be artificial, vast constructions that stretched beyond the range of the camera's illumination. These structures seemed to pulse with the same bioluminescent patterns the creatures had been displaying. The official investigation concluded that the footage was inconclusive, possibly showing natural rock formations enhanced by unusual lighting conditions. But marine geologists who examined the recordings off the record reported that the structures showed signs of deliberate construction, with angles and proportions that don't occur naturally. As we examine each of these cases, a pattern begins to emerge that's more disturbing than any single disappearance. These aren't random accidents or equipment failures. They're systematic removals of people who have gotten too close to something that exists in the deepest parts of our oceans, something that doesn't want to be discovered. The 6th case brings us to the submarine rescue vessel Depth Finder, which was responding to a distress call from a research station that had lost contact with one of its deep-sea vehicles. Captain Michael Torres commanded a crew of 15 specialists trained in deep water recovery operations. The distress call had originated from the research submarine Hadal Zone, which had been exploring previously unmapped areas of the ocean floor. The submarine's last transmission indicated they had discovered something significant, but the signal was cut off mid-sentence. Standard protocol required an immediate rescue mission. Captain Torres and his crew were considered the best in their field, with successful rescue operations in some of the most challenging conditions on Earth. The Depth Finder was equipped with advanced sonar mapping, deep-sea recovery equipment, and enough supplies for extended operations in remote waters. When they reached the coordinates where the Hadal Zone had last been detected, Captain Torres found something that shouldn't have been possible. The research submarine was sitting on the ocean surface, completely intact and operational, but its crew of 4 had vanished without explanation. The hatch was sealed from the inside, life support systems were functioning normally, and the vessel's logs showed routine operations right up until the moment everyone disappeared. What disturbed the rescue team most was the submarine's sample bay. The Hadal Zone had been collecting specimens from the deep ocean floor, but when they examined the collection containers, they found something unprecedented. The samples weren't just unusual marine life. They were organisms that seemed to exist in a state between living and artificial, as if biological material had been deliberately modified for unknown purposes. Dr. Sarah Kim, the marine biologist aboard the Depth Finder, later described these specimens as unlike anything in the scientific record. They appeared to be constructed rather than evolved, with cellular structures that followed geometric patterns instead of natural biological development. When she attempted to analyze them further, the specimens dissolved completely, leaving no trace they had ever existed. The rescue mission took an unexpected turn when the depth finder's sonar detected massive structures on the ocean floor directly beneath their position. These weren't natural formations. They showed clear signs of deliberate construction, with symmetrical designs that extended far beyond the range of their scanning equipment. Captain Torres made the decision to investigate, despite growing concerns from his crew. As they prepared to deploy deep-sea cameras, the ship's communication systems began receiving signals that defied explanation. The transmissions weren't coming from any known source, and they weren't using standard radio frequencies. Instead, they seemed to be coming from beneath the ocean, transmitted through the water itself in ways that current technology couldn't replicate. The final log entry from the depth finder described these signals as containing mathematical sequences that suggested a form of intelligence trying to establish contact. Captain Torres noted that the patterns were becoming more complex and more specifically directed at their vessel, as if something was learning their communication protocols in real time. When search teams located the depth finder 72 hours later, they found a scene that had become disturbingly familiar. The vessel was intact and operational, floating peacefully on the surface with all equipment functioning normally. But Captain Torres and his entire crew had vanished, leaving behind only their personal belongings and a ship's computer that had recorded acoustic signals unlike anything previously documented. The seventh disappearance involved the deep-sea mining vessel Abyssal Harvest, which had been conducting exploratory operations for rare earth minerals in the deepest accessible parts of the Pacific Ocean. The operation was supervised by Dr. James Patterson, a geologist with 30 years of experience in underwater mineral extraction. Dr. Patterson's team was using cutting-edge technology to map mineral deposits on the ocean floor, working at depths where the pressure would crush conventional equipment instantly. Their specialized gear was designed to withstand conditions more extreme than those found on other planets. Yet something in the deep ocean proved more powerful than human engineering. The mining operation had been proceeding successfully for 3 weeks when the team encountered formations that didn't match any known geological processes. Dr. Patterson reported discovering what appeared to be excavated areas on the seafloor, vast hollowed-out sections that showed signs of systematic removal of material. These excavations were far too precise and extensive to be natural. As the team investigated these formations, their equipment began detecting unusual energy signatures emanating from deep within the excavated areas. The readings suggested some form of active technology operating at depths where no human-made equipment could possibly function. Dr. Patterson described these signals as showing patterns of intelligence and purpose. The Abyssal Harvest's final transmission came as the team was attempting to deploy probes into one of the mysterious excavations. Dr. Patterson reported that their equipment was detecting movement within the hollowed-out areas, massive shapes that seemed to be ascending from even greater depths. His voice carried a tone of excitement mixed with growing concern as he described objects that were clearly artificial, but far larger than any human construction. Search teams found the mining vessel exactly where it should have been, all systems operational, but completely abandoned. The deep-sea mining equipment had been retrieved and secured properly, suggesting the crew had time to follow standard procedures before whatever happened to them occurred. But the most puzzling discovery was that the mineral samples they had collected showed signs of artificial modification. When geologists analyzed these samples, they found that the rare earth elements had been arranged in crystalline structures that don't occur naturally. These formations appeared to be designed for specific purposes, possibly as components in technology far more advanced than anything humans had developed. The implications were staggering, suggesting that someone or something had been mining and processing these materials long before humans had even discovered their existence. The eighth case brings us to the research vessel Pacific Observer, which was investigating reports of unusual tectonic activity along underwater mountain ranges. Dr. Lisa Chen, a seismologist specializing in deep ocean earthquakes, led a team of 12 scientists equipped with the most sensitive earthquake detection equipment available. Dr. Chen had been tracking seismic patterns that didn't match any known geological processes. The earthquakes were occurring in precise sequences, with timing and magnitude that suggested artificial generation rather than natural tectonic movement. Her team's mission was to determine whether these patterns represented a new type of geological phenomenon or something else entirely. The investigation began with the deployment of seismic sensors along the ocean floor, equipment designed to detect the smallest ground movements and transmit data to the surface in real time. What the sensors recorded challenged every assumption about deep ocean geology. The seismic readings showed that the earthquakes were actually controlled demolitions, precise excavations being carried out by unknown means at depths where the pressure should make any kind of construction impossible. The pattern suggested that massive underground chambers were being created, connected by tunnels that extended for hundreds of miles beneath the seafloor. Dr. Chen's team attempted to map these underground structures using advanced sonar imaging, but their equipment kept detecting interference from sources that shouldn't have existed. The interference patterns suggested active technology operating within the excavated areas, technology that was sophisticated enough to jam human scanning attempts while simultaneously carrying out massive construction projects. The Pacific Observer's final communication described the detection of artificial lighting sources within the underground chambers. Dr. Chen reported that their deep-sea cameras had captured glimpses of illuminated spaces far beneath the ocean floor, areas that appeared to be actively occupied and operational. Her excitement was evident as she described what appeared to be a vast underground facility of unknown origin. When the vessel was found drifting empty 18 hours later, investigators discovered that the seismic data had been completely erased from the ship's computers. The only evidence of the team's discoveries was a single memory card hidden in Dr. Chen's personal belongings, containing fragments of sonar images that showed geometric structures extending deep into the Earth's crust. These 9 disappearances represent just the beginning of a pattern that extends across every ocean on Earth. As we continue through the night, each case will reveal new aspects of whatever exists in the deep waters, something that has been operating beyond human awareness for possibly decades or longer. The 9th case involves the cargo submarine Deep Transport, which was carrying supplies to an underwater research station in the Arctic Ocean. Captain Robert Kim commanded a crew of 8, all specialists in polar underwater operations, where equipment failure could mean death within minutes. The Deep Transport was following a route that had been used safely for over 5 years, carrying essential supplies to scientists studying climate change effects on deep ocean currents. The submarine was equipped with redundant safety systems and communication equipment designed to function in the most extreme conditions on Earth. Halfway through their journey, the submarine's sensors detected unusual thermal readings coming from the ocean floor. Captain Kim reported discovering areas where the water temperature was significantly higher than it should have been, suggesting geothermal activity in regions where none had been previously recorded. The decision was made to investigate, as this discovery could have important implications for climate research. As the Deep Transport descended to examine the thermal anomalies, the crew discovered that the heat sources weren't natural geothermal vents. Instead, they appeared to be artificial heating systems maintaining precise temperatures in specific areas of the seafloor. The patterns were too regular and controlled to be anything other than deliberately constructed. Captain Kim's final log entry described the discovery of what appeared to be an underwater facility, a vast complex of structures that extended far beyond the range of their lights. The facility appeared to be operational, with visible activity and lighting that suggested it was currently occupied. The crew reported seeing movement within the structures, shapes that were clearly artificial, but unlike any human technology. The Deep Transport was recovered 3 days later by an icebreaker that had been dispatched when the submarine failed to arrive at the research station. The vessel was found frozen in Arctic ice, despite being equipped with heating systems that should have prevented any ice formation. When investigators examined the submarine, they found that the heating systems had been deliberately shut down from the inside, but the crew was nowhere to be found. The submarine's cargo hold contained supplies that had been rearranged in the same systematic pattern found in other disappearances, as if something had been conducting a detailed inventory of human equipment and materials. Most disturbing was the discovery that some of the scientific instruments being transported to the research station had been modified in ways that improved their functionality beyond original specifications. Analysis of these modifications revealed technology that was decades ahead of current human capabilities, suggesting that whatever had examined the equipment possessed a thorough understanding of human science and the ability to improve upon it significantly. The implications were staggering. Something in the deep ocean wasn't just hiding from human detection, it was actively studying and enhancing human technology. The 10th disappearance brings us to the research vessel Benthic Pioneer, which was investigating unusual biological activity in the deepest accessible parts of the Atlantic Ocean. Dr. Maria Santos, a marine biologist specializing in extreme environment organisms, led a team of 10 researchers equipped with the latest in deep-sea biological sampling technology. Dr. Santos had been tracking reports of new species appearing in areas where life shouldn't have been able to survive. These organisms were thriving at depths and pressures that should have been lethal, displaying characteristics that suggested they had been deliberately adapted to these extreme conditions rather than having evolved naturally. The research mission began with the discovery of entire ecosystems that had apparently appeared overnight in areas that had been lifeless just months earlier. These ecosystems weren't just surviving in the extreme conditions, they were thriving, displaying levels of biological activity that defied every known principle of deep-sea biology. As the team collected samples, they noticed that the organisms seemed to be responding to their presence in coordinated ways. Instead of the simple stimulus-response behavior expected from deep-sea life, these creatures were displaying signs of complex communication and group decision-making. Dr. Santos described them as showing levels of intelligence that shouldn't have been possible given their apparent simplicity. The Benthic Pioneer's final transmission reported the discovery of what appeared to be biological technology, organisms that had been modified to serve specific functions within the ecosystem. Some creatures seemed designed for construction, others for transportation, and still others for what could only be described as information processing. The boundaries between natural biology and artificial engineering had been completely erased. When search teams located the research vessel, they found it anchored precisely above the site where the team had been conducting their final experiments. The ship was intact and all equipment was functional, but the crew had vanished completely. The biological samples they had collected were gone, but the sampling containers showed signs of having been opened from the inside, as if the specimens had somehow freed themselves. The ship's underwater cameras had recorded the final moments of the research mission. Footage that was immediately classified but has been described by sources familiar with the investigation as showing the crew voluntarily entering the water and descending toward the ocean floor without any breathing equipment. The recordings allegedly show them moving with purpose and coordination, as if they were responding to some form of external guidance. These first 10 cases establish the foundation of a pattern that becomes more complex and disturbing as we examine the remaining 15 disappearances. Each incident reveals new capabilities of whatever exists in the deep ocean. Capabilities that suggest an intelligence far more advanced than anything humans have encountered before. The 11th case takes us into waters that challenge our understanding of physics itself. The deep-sea research vessel Hadal Explorer was investigating gravitational anomalies detected by satellite measurements over a section of the Mariana Trench. Dr. Kevin Walsh, a physicist specializing in underwater gravitational effects, commanded a team of 9 scientists equipped with instruments sensitive enough to detect minute changes in Earth's gravitational field. Dr. Walsh had been tracking readings that suggested something massive was moving beneath the ocean floor, something that was affecting local gravity in ways that shouldn't have been possible. The anomalies were occurring in patterns that indicated controlled movement, rather than natural geological processes, as if enormous objects were being repositioned deep within the Earth's crust. The mission began with the deployment of gravitational sensors at various depths, creating a three-dimensional map of gravitational disturbances. What they discovered challenged fundamental laws of physics. The readings showed that gravity was being artificially manipulated in specific areas, creating zones where objects would weigh significantly more or less than they should at those depths. As the team investigated these gravitational anomalies, their equipment began detecting what could only be described as artificial gravity wells, areas where gravity was being concentrated or dispersed in ways that required technology beyond human understanding. Dr. Walsh reported that these effects were being generated from sources located miles beneath the seafloor, far deeper than any known geological activity. The Hadal explorers' final communication came as the team was attempting to measure the source of the strongest gravitational anomaly. Dr. Walsh described their instruments detecting something rising from the deepest parts of the trench, something so massive that it was causing measurable distortions in local spacetime. His voice carried a mixture of scientific excitement and growing alarm as he reported readings that violated everything they thought they knew about physics. Search teams found the research vessel floating empty exactly 24 hours later. The gravitational sensors had been recovered and stored properly, but when investigators examined the data, they found recordings that physicists still can't explain. The instruments had detected gravitational waves that shouldn't exist naturally, patterns that suggested someone or something was using gravity as a form of communication or transportation. The 12th disappearance involved the deep-sea mining platform Abyssal Reach, which was conducting experimental extraction operations in the deepest commercially accessible waters. Captain Jennifer Morrison supervised a crew of 16 specialists using revolutionary technology to harvest rare minerals from the ocean floor at previously impossible depths. The operation had been proceeding successfully for 6 weeks when the team encountered something that changed everything. Their mining equipment began detecting artificial structures buried within the seafloor sediment, structures that appeared to have been there for an extremely long time, but showed no signs of deterioration. Captain Morrison made the decision to investigate, despite warnings from her geological team that the structures might be unstable. As they began careful excavation around these buried objects, the team discovered that they weren't just structures, they were machines, incredibly complex devices that had been dormant beneath the seafloor for an unknown period. The machines showed no signs of corrosion or wear, despite being exposed to the corrosive deep-sea environment, suggesting they were constructed from materials far more advanced than anything humans had developed. When the excavation accidentally activated one of these machines, the Abyssal Reach's instruments detected energy patterns unlike anything in the scientific record. The machine began communicating with other buried devices across a vast area of the seafloor, creating a network of activity that stretched far beyond the mining site. Captain Morrison reported that dozens of these machines were awakening in response to the disturbance. The mining platform's final transmission described the machines beginning to rise from the sea floor, massive constructions that dwarfed any human-built technology. Captain Morrison's voice was filled with awe and terror as she reported that the machines seemed to be scanning the platform, analyzing every piece of equipment and every member of the crew with some form of energy beam that left no physical effects but felt invasive and thorough. When the Abyssal Reach was located 48 hours later, investigators found that the mining equipment had been completely disassembled and reassembled in configurations that improved its efficiency by several 100%. The modifications used the same materials that had been on the platform, but arranged them according to engineering principles that human science hadn't yet discovered. The crew, however, had vanished without leaving any trace of their fate. The 13th case brings us to the research submarine Deep Vision. which was investigating reports of unusual electromagnetic activity in the deepest parts of the Pacific Ocean. Dr. Sarah Chen, an electrical engineer specializing in underwater electromagnetic phenomena, led a team of 7 researchers equipped with the most sensitive electromagnetic detection equipment available. Dr. Chen had been tracking electromagnetic pulses that were originating from deep ocean trenches, pulses that were far too organized and powerful to be natural phenomena. The signals showed characteristics of advanced communication systems, but they were using frequencies and modulation techniques that human technology couldn't replicate. The investigation began with the deployment of electromagnetic sensors at various depths, creating a comprehensive map of the signal sources. What they discovered was a vast communication network operating beneath the ocean floor, transmitting data at speeds that challenged the fundamental limits of electromagnetic communication. As the team attempted to decode these signals, they realized that the electromagnetic pulses were carrying information of incredible complexity. Dr. Chen reported that the data streams contained mathematical concepts that were beyond current human understanding, as if they were observing the communications of a civilization with scientific knowledge far more advanced than our own. The Deep Vision's final log entry described the submarine being contacted directly by the electromagnetic communication system. Dr. Chen reported that their equipment was receiving signals that were specifically addressed to their vessel, messages that demonstrated detailed knowledge of human technology and scientific capabilities. The signals seemed to be attempting to establish a dialogue, using mathematical concepts as a universal language. When search teams located the submarine 18 hours later, they found it resting on the ocean surface with all systems operational, but the crew missing. The electromagnetic detection equipment had been modified in ways that enhanced its capabilities dramatically, suggesting that whoever had contacted the submarine possessed the ability to improve human technology instantaneously. The modifications followed engineering principles that were decades ahead of current scientific understanding. The 14th disappearance involved the cargo vessel, Deep Freight, which was transporting specialized equipment to an underwater research facility in the Arctic Ocean. Captain David Kim commanded a crew of 12, all experienced in the challenging conditions of polar underwater operations, where mechanical failures could be fatal within minutes. The Deep Freight was carrying experimental technology designed to study the effects of climate change on deep ocean ecosystems. The cargo included advanced sensors, underwater drones, and communication equipment that represented the cutting edge of marine research technology. The vessel was following a route that had been used safely for 3 years without incident. Midway through their journey, the ship's sensors detected unusual thermal patterns on the ocean floor that didn't match any known natural phenomena. Captain Kim reported discovering areas where the seafloor was being heated to precise temperatures in geometric patterns, creating what appeared to be artificial thermal zones maintained by unknown technology. As the crew investigated these thermal anomalies, they discovered that the heating wasn't coming from geothermal sources, but from artificial devices embedded in the seafloor. These devices were operating with such precision that they were creating microclimates for specific types of marine life, essentially farming the ocean in ways that required understanding of biology and engineering far beyond human capabilities. The Deep Freight's final communication described the discovery of what appeared to be underwater agriculture, vast areas where marine organisms were being cultivated and harvested by automated systems of incredible sophistication. Captain Kim reported seeing machines that were tending to these underwater farms with the same care and precision that human farmers used on land, but operating at depths where human presence was impossible. When the vessel was found drifting empty 72 hours later, investigators discovered that the experimental equipment being transported had been unpacked and tested. The devices showed signs of having been operated by someone with complete understanding of their functions, and several had been modified to enhance their capabilities beyond original specifications. The modifications suggested that whoever had examined the equipment possessed knowledge of the research projects the devices were designed for. The 15th case involves the research vessel Oceanic Pioneer, which was investigating unusual acoustic phenomena in the deepest accessible parts of the Indian Ocean. Dr. Amanda Foster, an acoustic engineer specializing in underwater sound transmission, led a team of 8 researchers equipped with the most advanced underwater listening equipment available. Dr. Foster had been tracking acoustic patterns that suggested the presence of massive artificial structures beneath the ocean floor. The sounds weren't coming from any known marine life or geological processes, but rather indicated the operation of machinery on a scale that dwarfed any human construction project. The investigation began with the deployment of hydrophones at various depths, creating a comprehensive acoustic map of the area. What they discovered was a vast network of mechanical activity operating deep beneath the seafloor. Sounds that indicated continuous construction and manufacturing processes that had apparently been ongoing for years without human awareness. As the team analyzed these acoustic patterns, they realized that the machinery was producing sounds that followed musical principles, creating harmonics and rhythms that suggested aesthetic consideration rather than purely functional operation. Dr. Foster described it as listening to an alien orchestra performing complex compositions while simultaneously carrying out massive industrial operations. The Oceanic Pioneer's final transmission reported that the acoustic equipment was detecting direct communication attempts from the sources of the mechanical sounds. Dr. Foster described receiving acoustic signals that were specifically modulated to match the frequency response of their listening equipment, as if something was trying to establish contact using sound as a medium for complex information exchange. When search teams located the research vessel, they found it anchored precisely above the strongest acoustic source. The ship was intact and all equipment was operational, but the crew had disappeared. The acoustic recordings they had made were still intact, containing hours of sounds that acoustic engineers describe as unlike anything in the natural world, mechanical symphonies of incredible complexity and beauty. The 16th disappearance brings us to the deep-sea research platform Benthic Station, which was conducting long-term studies of deep ocean currents and their effects on global climate patterns. Dr. Michael Torres supervised a team of 14 researchers who had been living and working on the platform for 3 months, studying phenomena that could only be observed through extended deep-sea presence. The platform was anchored above one of the deepest ocean trenches, using advanced technology to study water circulation patterns at depths where few measurements had ever been taken. Dr. Torres and his team were tracking currents that seemed to be artificially controlled, flowing in patterns that defied known oceanographic principles. Their research had revealed that the deep ocean currents were being manipulated by unknown means, creating circulation patterns that were far more efficient at distributing heat and nutrients than natural currents. The modifications appeared to be part of a global system designed to optimize ocean health and stability, suggesting intervention by an intelligence with comprehensive understanding of planetary oceanography. As the team investigated the source of these current modifications, they discovered mechanical devices embedded in the seafloor that were generating precise water movements. These devices were operating in perfect coordination across thousands of miles of ocean floor, creating a management system for global ocean circulation that was maintaining optimal conditions for marine life. The Benthic Station's final communication described the discovery that these current control devices were part of a planetary maintenance system, machinery that had been operating for an unknown period to keep Earth's oceans in optimal condition for life. Dr. Torres reported that the system seemed to be responding to climate change by increasing its activity, working to counteract human-caused environmental damage. When rescue teams reached the platform's coordinates, they found it floating empty but fully operational. The research data had been completed and organized, as if the team had finished their work before disappearing. Most remarkably, the current monitoring equipment showed that the artificial current patterns had been adjusted to include the platform's presence, as if the system had been studying the human researchers just as intently as they had been studying it. The 17th case involves the submersible Deep Quest, which was exploring underwater mountain ranges that showed signs of artificial modification. Captain Lisa Chen commanded a crew of 6 specialists investigating geological formations that appeared to have been deliberately shaped rather than naturally formed. The underwater mountains showed clear evidence of engineering, with surfaces that had been precisely carved and passages that followed geometric principles not found in natural formations. Captain Chen reported that these modifications appeared to be ancient, but showed no signs of erosion or wear, suggesting they were constructed from materials that were virtually indestructible. As the submersible explored these artificial mountain ranges, the crew discovered that they weren't just modified natural formations. They were entirely artificial constructions designed to look like natural mountains from a distance. The deception was so sophisticated that satellite imaging and surface-based sonar couldn't detect the difference. The Deep Quest's final log entry described the discovery of passages within these artificial mountains that led to vast underground chambers. Captain Chen reported that these chambers contained machinery of incredible complexity, devices that appeared to be monitoring and controlling ocean conditions across vast areas of the planet. When the submersible was recovered, investigators found that it had been returned to the surface by some external means, despite the crew having planned to remain underwater for several more days. The vessel's systems showed no signs of emergency ascent, suggesting that it had been carefully brought to the surface by technology far more advanced than human capabilities. The crew, however, was nowhere to be found. The 18th disappearance takes us to the research vessel Pacific Deep, which was investigating reports of artificial lighting in areas of the ocean where no light should exist. Dr. Robert Kim led a team of 9 researchers equipped with the most sensitive light detection equipment available, designed to study bioluminescence in the deepest parts of the ocean. Dr. Kim had been tracking reports from multiple sources of artificial lighting visible at depths where the pressure should crush any human-made light source. The lighting patterns were too organized and consistent to be natural bioluminescence, suggesting the presence of technology operating in areas previously thought to be completely lifeless. The investigation revealed that the artificial lighting was coming from vast underwater cities, constructions of incredible size and sophistication that had been hidden in the deepest ocean trenches. These cities were fully operational, with lighting systems that indicated active habitation and ongoing activity. As the team attempted to document these underwater cities, their equipment detected movement that suggested the presence of inhabitants. Dr. Kim reported seeing shapes that were clearly artificial, vehicles or beings that were moving through the illuminated areas with purpose and intelligence. The Pacific Deep's final communication described direct contact with these underwater inhabitants. Dr. Kim reported that their vessel was being approached by vehicles from the underwater cities, craft that moved through the water with technology that appeared to defy known principles of physics. When search teams located the research vessel, they found it floating on the surface with all equipment intact, but showing signs of having been visited by advanced technology. The ship's systems had been enhanced in ways that improved their efficiency and capabilities, but the crew had vanished completely, leaving behind only their research notes describing discoveries that would revolutionize human understanding of the ocean. The 19th case brings us to the deep-sea exploration vessel Abyssal Dawn, which was conducting mineral surveys in the Puerto Rico Trench when they encountered something that defied every principle of underwater engineering. Captain Maria Santos commanded a crew of 11 specialists, each with decades of experience in the most challenging deep-sea environments on Earth. The mission had been routine until their sonar detected geometric patterns on the trench floor that extended far beyond the range of their scanning equipment. These weren't natural rock formations or geological structures. They were vast architectural complexes that showed clear signs of deliberate construction, yet they existed at depths where the pressure should have crushed any known building materials instantly. Captain Santos made the decision to investigate, deploying their deepest diving submersible to get visual confirmation of what their instruments were detecting. What they found challenged everything humans thought they knew about deep ocean construction. The structures weren't just surviving the crushing pressure, they were thriving in it, designed specifically to operate in conditions that would destroy human technology within seconds. The submersible's cameras captured footage of buildings that seemed to grow organically from the sea floor while maintaining perfect geometric precision. These structures incorporated living materials that strengthened under pressure rather than being crushed by it, creating architecture that was simultaneously biological and mechanical. The buildings pulsed with their own internal lighting, creating patterns that suggested they were communicating with each other across the vast complex. As the submersible explored deeper into this underwater city, the crew reported seeing movement within the transparent walls of the buildings, shapes that were clearly intelligent, beings that moved with purpose and seemed to be observing the human visitors with as much curiosity as the humans were observing them. The beings appeared to be adapted for life at these extreme depths, but their movements suggested technology rather than natural evolution. The Abyssal Dawn's final transmission came as Captain Santos reported that their submersible was being guided through the underwater city by escorts from the deep-sea inhabitants. Her voice carried wonder and excitement as she described being taken on what could only be called a tour, shown facilities and technologies that operated on principles unknown to human science. When rescue teams located the exploration vessel 72 hours later, they found it anchored precisely above the deepest part of the trench. The ship was intact and all systems were functional, but the crew had vanished. Most remarkably, the mineral survey equipment had been enhanced with modifications that allowed it to operate at depths previously thought impossible, suggesting that the crew's encounter with the deep-sea inhabitants had resulted in a technological exchange. The 20th disappearance involves the research submarine Hadal Pioneer, which was investigating reports of controlled geological activity in the deepest accessible parts of the Atlantic Ocean. Dr. Elena Vasquez led a team of 7 researchers equipped with seismic monitoring equipment designed to detect and analyze earthquake patterns in real time. Dr. Vasquez had been tracking seismic events that followed mathematical sequences rather than natural geological patterns. The earthquakes were occurring in precise timing and locations that suggested they were being artificially generated for specific purposes, possibly as a form of deep earth communication or construction technique. The investigation began with the deployment of seismic sensors across a wide area of the ocean floor, creating a network that could triangulate the exact sources of the artificial earthquakes. What they discovered was a coordinated construction project taking place deep within the Earth's crust, excavations and modifications that were reshaping the seafloor according to some vast design. As the team monitored these controlled seismic events, they realized that the earthquakes were being used as tools, precisely directed energy releases that could carve through solid rock with surgical precision. Dr. Vasquez reported that whatever was causing these events possessed technology that could control tectonic forces with the same precision that humans used mechanical tools. The Hadal Pioneer's seismic equipment began detecting responses to their monitoring efforts. The sources of the artificial earthquakes seemed to be aware that they were being observed and began generating seismic patterns that were clearly intended as communication attempts. The patterns followed mathematical principles that suggested intelligence and the desire to establish contact. Dr. Vasquez's final log entry describes successful communication with the entities responsible for the controlled geological activity. She reported that the seismic patterns had evolved into a complex language that allowed for the exchange of mathematical and scientific concepts. The beings responsible for the construction project were apparently willing to share information about their activities and their purposes. When the submarine was recovered, investigators found that the seismic monitoring equipment had been modified to detect much more subtle geological changes, enhancements that revealed a level of ongoing geological manipulation that was far more extensive than anyone had suspected. The crew, however, had disappeared, leaving behind only their research notes describing a civilization that was actively maintaining and improving the structure of the ocean floor itself. The 21st case takes us to the cargo submarine Deep Carrier, which was transporting sensitive scientific equipment to an underwater research facility when they encountered something that changed their understanding of deep ocean transportation. Captain Jennifer Walsh commanded a crew of 8, all specialists in navigating the challenging conditions of deep water cargo transport. The submarine was carrying experimental equipment designed to study the effects of extreme pressure on various materials, research that was crucial for developing technology capable of operating in the deepest parts of the ocean. The cargo included pressure chambers, testing apparatus, and monitoring equipment that represented years of development and millions of dollars in research investment. Midway through their journey, the submarine's navigation systems detected what appeared to be artificial currents, water movements that were too organized and purposeful to be natural phenomena. Captain Walsh reported that these currents seemed designed to assist underwater transportation, creating highways beneath the ocean that could move objects much more efficiently than conventional propulsion. As the crew investigated these artificial currents, they discovered that they were part of a vast transportation network that connected different areas of the deep ocean. The currents were generated by devices embedded in the sea floor that could control water movement with incredible precision, creating express routes for underwater travel that reduced transit time by orders of magnitude. The Deep Carrier's final communication described being caught in one of these artificial currents and transported at speeds that shouldn't have been possible for their submarine. Captain Walsh reported that their vessel was being carried along pathways that seemed designed specifically for their size and configuration, as if the transportation system had analyzed their submarine and optimized the current flow accordingly. When search teams located the cargo submarine, they found it had arrived at its destination facility 3 days ahead of schedule, despite having traveled a route that should have taken much longer. The submarine was intact and all cargo was properly secured, but the crew had vanished. Most puzzling was the discovery that the experimental pressure equipment had been tested and calibrated to specifications that exceeded the original design parameters, suggesting interaction with technology far more advanced than human capabilities. The 22nd disappearance involves the research vessel Ocean Explorer, which was investigating unusual magnetic phenomena in the deepest parts of the Pacific Ocean. Dr. Michael Kim led a team of 10 researchers equipped with magnetometers and other instruments designed to study the Earth's magnetic field in areas where few measurements had ever been taken. Dr. Kim had been tracking magnetic anomalies that suggested the presence of massive metallic structures beneath the ocean floor. These anomalies were too large and too organized to be natural mineral deposits, indicating artificial constructions of incredible size, operating in areas previously thought to be geologically inactive. The investigation revealed that the magnetic anomalies were coming from a vast network of metallic structures that extended throughout the deep ocean basins. These structures appeared to be part of a global system that was actively monitoring and possibly controlling the Earth's magnetic field, maintaining stability in ways that protected the planet from harmful cosmic radiation. As the team studied these magnetic structures, their equipment began detecting controlled changes in the local magnetic field. Dr. Kim reported that the structures seemed to be responding to their research activities, adjusting their magnetic output in ways that made the measurements more accurate and detailed. It was as if the system was actively cooperating with their scientific investigation. The Ocean Explorer's final transmission described direct magnetic communication with the network of structures. Dr. Kim reported that their magnetometers were receiving signals that contained complex information about planetary magnetic field management, data that revealed a level of understanding about Earth's magnetic systems that far exceeded human knowledge. When the research vessel was found floating empty, investigators discovered that the magnetic monitoring equipment had been enhanced with modifications that allowed it to detect much more subtle magnetic changes. The enhancements revealed that the magnetic field management system was far more active and sophisticated than anyone had imagined, constantly making micro-adjustments to protect Earth from cosmic threats that humans weren't even aware of. The 23rd case brings us to the deep-sea mining vessel Benthic Harvester, which was conducting extraction operations in the Mariana Trench when they encountered something that revolutionized their understanding of underwater resource management. Captain Sarah Chen supervised a crew of 14 specialists using the most advanced mining technology available for deep ocean operations. The mining operation had been proceeding normally until the team discovered that someone or something had been extracting materials from the same area using methods that left no environmental impact. The seafloor showed signs of selective harvesting that removed specific minerals while leaving the ecosystem completely undisturbed, a level of precision that human technology couldn't achieve. As the crew investigated these environmentally neutral extraction sites, they discovered that the mining was being conducted by biological machines, organisms that had been designed to extract specific materials while simultaneously maintaining and improving the local ecosystem. These biological miners were more efficient than any human technology while causing no environmental damage whatsoever. The Benthic Harvester's mining equipment began interacting with these biological machines, which seemed curious about human extraction methods. Captain Chen reported that the biological miners were studying their equipment and apparently learning from human mining techniques, while simultaneously demonstrating vastly superior methods that the human crew could barely comprehend. The mining vessel's final log entry described a collaborative mining operation where human and biological machines worked together to extract materials using hybrid techniques that combined the best aspects of both approaches. Captain Chen noted that the biological machines seemed eager to share their environmentally sustainable methods with the human crew. When the vessel was recovered, investigators found that the mining equipment had been completely redesigned using biological engineering principles that made it far more efficient while eliminating all environmental impact. The modifications followed design principles that were decades ahead of current human understanding of both engineering and biology. The crew, however, had disappeared, leaving behind detailed notes describing mining techniques that could revolutionize resource extraction on Earth. The 24th disappearance involves the research submarine Deep Scanner, which was conducting comprehensive surveys of ocean floor topography when they discovered that large areas of the seafloor were being actively maintained and modified by unknown means. Dr. Amanda Torres led a team of 6 researchers equipped with the most advanced seafloor mapping technology available. Dr. Torres had been creating detailed maps of previously uncharted areas when she noticed that the seafloor topography was changing between survey passes. Areas that had shown natural formations on one scan would display clearly artificial modifications on subsequent scans, as if massive construction projects were being completed in a matter of hours. The investigation revealed that the seafloor was being continuously maintained and improved by an automated system of incredible sophistication. The modifications followed principles of underwater engineering that optimized water flow, provided habitats for marine life, and maintained geological stability in ways that prevented earthquakes and underwater landslides. As the team studied this seafloor maintenance system, they realized that it was part of a global ocean management project that had been operating for an unknown period. The system was preventing natural disasters, maintaining optimal conditions for marine ecosystems, and gradually improving the ocean environment in ways that would benefit all life on Earth. The Deep Scanner's final communication described the submarine being incorporated into the seafloor maintenance system, with the crew reporting that they were being given the opportunity to participate in planetary ocean management. Dr. Torres expressed excitement about the possibility of learning techniques that could help humans better care for the Earth's marine environments. When the submarine was located, it was found resting on the seafloor in an area that had been specifically modified to accommodate it. The vessel was intact and all systems were operational, but the crew had vanished. The seafloor mapping equipment had been enhanced to detect much more subtle changes in topography, revealing that the ocean floor maintenance system was far more active and extensive than the initial surveys had indicated. The 25th and final case brings us to the research vessel Oceanic Frontier, which was conducting a comprehensive study of deep ocean biodiversity when they encountered something that challenged every assumption about life in the deepest parts of the ocean. Dr. Lisa Kim led a team of 12 researchers equipped with the most advanced biological sampling and analysis equipment available. Dr. Kim had been documenting species that shouldn't have been able to survive at extreme depths when she discovered that many of these organisms had been deliberately placed in these environments as part of a vast biological engineering project. The deep ocean wasn't just supporting life, it was actively cultivating and developing new forms of life with specific capabilities and purposes. The investigation revealed that the deep ocean was being used as a biological laboratory where new species were being developed and tested before being introduced to other marine environments. The project showed understanding of genetics and evolutionary biology that was far more advanced than human science, creating organisms that could thrive in previously uninhabitable environments. As the team studied these engineered organisms, they realized that the biological engineering project was designed to gradually adapt Earth's marine ecosystems to changing environmental conditions. The new species were being developed to maintain ocean health in the face of climate change and other environmental challenges that threatened existing marine life. The Oceanic Frontier's final transmission described the research team being invited to participate in the biological engineering project. Dr. Kim reported that they were being shown techniques for developing organisms that could help restore damaged marine ecosystems and maintain ocean health under changing environmental conditions. When the vessel was found, investigators discovered that the biological sampling equipment had been enhanced with capabilities that allowed for real-time genetic analysis and modification. The enhancements revealed that the biological engineering project was far more advanced and comprehensive than anyone had imagined, actively working to ensure the long-term survival of all marine life on Earth. Each of these 25 disappearances tells part of a larger story, a pattern that reveals the existence of an advanced civilization that has been operating in Earth's deep oceans for an unknown period. These beings or entities have been actively maintaining and improving the ocean environment, developing new technologies, and apparently attempting to establish contact with humanity through those who venture into their domain. The evidence suggests that these deep ocean inhabitants are not hostile, but rather protective of the marine environment and possibly of Earth itself. Their technology appears to be focused on environmental maintenance, sustainable resource extraction, and the development of biological solutions to planetary challenges. The disappearances may not be abductions, but rather invitations to participate in a project that is far larger and more important than any human endeavor. As we've seen through these cases, the ocean holds secrets that challenge our understanding of life, technology, and our place in the universe. The deep waters that cover most of our planet are not empty voids, but active environments where an advanced civilization continues its work, maintaining the health of our world's marine systems, and perhaps waiting for humanity to develop the wisdom and technology necessary to join them in their efforts. The patterns revealed through these disappearances suggest that we are not alone on Earth, that intelligence far older and more advanced than our own has been quietly working to maintain the conditions that allow life to thrive. The question that remains is whether humanity will develop the maturity and environmental consciousness necessary to earn a place in this planetary maintenance project, or whether we will continue to damage the very systems that these deep ocean guardians have spent so long protecting and perfecting. The implications of these disappearances extend far beyond individual incidents. When we map the locations where these 25 cases occurred, a disturbing pattern emerges. They form a network across the world's deepest ocean trenches, creating what appears to be a global grid of activity that spans every major ocean basin. Dr. Jonathan Hayes, an independent researcher who has spent 5 years analyzing these cases, discovered that the disappearances cluster around areas where the ocean floor shows signs of recent geological modification. Using satellite data and deep-sea survey records, he identified over 200 locations where the seafloor has been altered in ways that don't match natural geological processes. These modifications follow a consistent pattern. Natural rock formations are replaced with structures that optimize water circulation, provide enhanced habitats for marine life, and create acoustic properties that improve underwater communication across vast distances. The engineering principles involved are so advanced that human scientists are only beginning to understand their basic functions. What makes Dr. Hayes' research particularly compelling is his discovery that these seafloor modifications have been accelerating over the past decade. Areas that showed natural formations in surveys from the 1990s now display clear signs of artificial enhancement. The pace of change suggests a massive construction project that is entering a new phase of activity. The timing of this acceleration coincides with increasing human awareness of climate change and ocean acidification. It's as if whatever intelligence operates in the deep ocean has recognized the growing threats to marine ecosystems and is working more urgently to counteract the damage. The modifications appear designed to maintain optimal ocean conditions despite human-caused environmental changes. But the most unsettling aspect of these patterns is what they suggest about the duration of this hidden civilization's presence on Earth. Geological analysis of some seafloor modifications indicates they are far older than human civilization, possibly predating the last ice age by thousands of years. We may be dealing with an intelligence that has been managing Earth's oceans since before humans developed agriculture. The 26th case, which was classified until recently, involves the nuclear submarine Deep Guardian, which encountered something in the Arctic Ocean that challenged every assumption about underwater technology. Commander Robert Chen was leading a routine patrol mission when his submarine's sensors detected artificial structures beneath the polar ice cap that dwarfed any human construction. The structures appeared to be power generation facilities, massive installations that were converting geothermal energy into forms that could be transmitted throughout the ocean basins. The scale of these installations suggested energy production capabilities that exceeded the total power output of human civilization, yet they operated without creating any detectable environmental impact. Commander Chen's final log entry, obtained through classified sources, described the submarine being approached by vehicles that moved through the water without any visible means of propulsion. These craft appeared to be conducting a detailed scan of the nuclear submarine, paying particular attention to the reactor compartment and weapons systems. The Deep Guardian was found floating on the surface 12 hours later, all nuclear safety systems properly shut down, and the vessel in perfect condition. The crew had vanished, but the submarine's reactor showed modifications that improved its efficiency while completely eliminating radioactive waste production. The implications were staggering. Whoever had examined the submarine possessed technology that could solve humanity's nuclear waste problem instantly. Military analysts who studied the incident concluded that the deep ocean civilization possessed defensive capabilities that could neutralize any human military technology. The modifications to the submarine's reactor were seen as a demonstration, a peaceful but unmistakable message that nuclear weapons pose no threat to these advanced beings. This encounter fundamentally changed how certain government agencies viewed the deep ocean disappearances. Rather than isolated incidents involving civilian researchers, they began to see them as part of a systematic evaluation of human technology and intentions by an intelligence that had been observing our species for far longer than anyone had imagined. The 27th case brings us to the research vessel Benthic Observer, which was investigating unusual chemical compositions in deep ocean water when they discovered that the ocean's chemistry was being actively maintained and adjusted by artificial means. Dr. Maria Santos led a team of 9 researchers equipped with the most sophisticated water analysis equipment available. Dr. Santos had been tracking chemical changes that didn't match any known natural processes. The ocean's pH levels, oxygen content, and nutrient distribution were being maintained within optimal ranges, despite human activities that should have caused significant chemical imbalances. Someone or something was actively managing ocean chemistry on a global scale. The investigation revealed a network of chemical processing stations distributed throughout the deep ocean basins. These facilities were continuously monitoring water quality and making precise adjustments to maintain optimal conditions for marine life. The technology involved was so advanced that it could neutralize pollution and restore chemical balance in real time. As the team studied these chemical processing stations, they discovered that the system was not just maintaining current ocean chemistry, but actually improving it. Areas that had been damaged by industrial pollution were being gradually restored to pristine condition, with pollutants being converted into harmless compounds, or even beneficial nutrients for marine ecosystems. The benthic observer's final communication described the research team being invited to observe the chemical processing operations firsthand. Dr. Santos reported that they were being shown techniques for neutralizing pollution and restoring ocean chemistry that could revolutionize environmental cleanup efforts on Earth. When the vessel was recovered, investigators found that the water analysis equipment had been enhanced with capabilities that could detect and neutralize pollutants at the molecular level. The modifications revealed that the ocean chemistry management system was far more sophisticated than anyone had realized, actively working to counteract every form of marine pollution that human activities had created. The 28th disappearance involves the deep-sea exploration vessel Abyssal Quest, which was investigating reports of artificial atmospheric pockets beneath the ocean floor when they discovered something that challenged basic assumptions about underwater environments. Captain Elena Rodriguez commanded a crew of 10 specialists equipped with atmospheric analysis equipment designed to study gas pockets trapped in deep-sea sediments. The mission began with the discovery that these atmospheric pockets weren't natural gas deposits, but artificially created breathing environments maintained at depths where the pressure should have made them impossible. These pockets contained breathable atmosphere with oxygen levels that were actually higher than surface air, despite being located miles beneath the ocean. As the crew investigated these artificial atmospheric environments, they discovered that they were part of a vast network of underground facilities that existed throughout the deep ocean floor. These facilities were connected by tunnels that maintained artificial atmospheres, creating a hidden world beneath the seafloor where air-breathing beings could live and work comfortably. The Abyssal Quest's atmospheric sensors began detecting complex chemical signatures that suggested these underground environments were actively inhabited. Captain Rodriguez reported that the atmospheric composition was being continuously adjusted to maintain optimal breathing conditions, with air quality that was superior to most surface environments. The exploration vessel's final log entry described the crew being invited to explore these underground atmospheric environments. Captain Rodriguez expressed amazement at the sophistication of the life support systems and the size of the hidden facilities that existed beneath the ocean floor. When search teams located the vessel, they found it anchored above one of the atmospheric pocket sites. The ship was intact and all equipment was functional, but the crew had disappeared. The atmospheric analysis equipment had been modified to detect much more subtle atmospheric changes, revealing that the underground facility network was far more extensive than the initial surveys had indicated. The 29th case takes us to the cargo vessel Deep Commerce, which was transporting advanced materials to an underwater construction project when they encountered something that revolutionized their understanding of underwater manufacturing. Captain Michael Torres supervised a crew of 12 specialists, managing a cargo of experimental metals and composites designed for extreme underwater applications. The vessel was carrying materials that represented the cutting edge of metallurgy and materials science, compounds that could withstand crushing pressure while maintaining flexibility and strength. These materials were intended for construction of a new deep-sea research facility that would operate at previously impossible depths. Midway through their journey, the ship's sensors detected manufacturing activity on the ocean floor that appeared to be producing materials with properties far superior to anything in their cargo. The manufacturing processes were operating at depths where the pressure should have made any kind of fabrication impossible, yet they were producing materials continuously. As the crew investigated this underwater manufacturing, they discovered that the processes were using raw materials extracted directly from seawater and seafloor sediments. The manufacturing technology could transform common ocean materials into advanced composites with properties that exceeded the best human materials science could produce. The Deep Commerce's final communication described the cargo being unloaded and examined by the underwater manufacturing system. Captain Torres reported that their advanced materials were being analyzed and then reproduced with improvements that enhanced their strength, flexibility, and durability beyond original specifications. When the vessel was found, investigators discovered that the experimental materials had been replaced with enhanced versions that demonstrated capabilities far beyond the original designs. The improvements followed materials science principles that were decades ahead of current human understanding, suggesting access to manufacturing techniques that could revolutionize construction and engineering. The 30th disappearance involves the research submarine Hadal probe, which was investigating unusual electromagnetic phenomena in the deepest parts of the ocean when they encountered something that challenged fundamental understanding of underwater electronics. Dr. Jennifer Walsh led a team of 7 researchers equipped with electromagnetic field detection equipment designed to study natural electrical phenomena in deep-sea environments. Dr. Walsh had been tracking electromagnetic signatures that suggested the presence of vast electrical systems operating beneath the ocean floor. These systems were generating and controlling electrical fields with precision that exceeded anything possible with human technology, creating what appeared to be a global electrical grid beneath the seafloor. The investigation revealed that this underwater electrical grid was powering the various systems that had been encountered in previous disappearances. The chemical processing stations, manufacturing facilities, and atmospheric maintenance systems were all connected to this electrical network that drew power from geothermal sources and distributed it efficiently throughout the ocean basins. As the team studied this electrical grid, they realized that it was designed with built-in redundancy and self-repair capabilities that made it virtually indestructible. The system could continue operating even if large sections were damaged, automatically rerouting power and rebuilding damaged components using materials extracted from the surrounding environment. The Hadal probe's final transmission described the submarine's electrical systems being connected to the underwater grid. Dr. Walsh reported that their equipment was receiving power from the grid while simultaneously being enhanced to operate more efficiently and reliably than ever before. When the submarine was recovered, investigators found that all electrical systems had been upgraded with components that operated on principles unknown to human electronics. The modifications eliminated power consumption while improving performance dramatically, suggesting access to electrical engineering techniques that could transform human technology. These 30 cases represent just the documented disappearances that have come to public attention. Intelligence sources suggest that there may be dozens of additional incidents that remain classified, involving military vessels and government research projects that encountered the same deep ocean civilization. The pattern that emerges from all these cases points to a civilization that has been operating in Earth's deep oceans for an extended period, possibly centuries or millennia. This civilization appears to be actively maintaining the planet's marine ecosystems, while developing technology that operates on principles far more advanced than current human science. The consistency of the evidence across all cases suggests that these beings are not randomly abducting humans, but rather selectively recruiting individuals who demonstrate the knowledge and skills necessary to participate in their planetary maintenance projects. The disappearances may actually be invitations to join a civilization that is working to preserve Earth's environment for future generations. The modifications made to human technology in every case follow patterns that suggest these beings are trying to help humanity develop more sustainable and efficient technologies. The enhancements always improve environmental compatibility while increasing performance, as if they are providing examples of how human technology could evolve to become more harmonious with natural systems. What makes this particularly significant is the timing of the increased activity. The acceleration in disappearances and seafloor modifications coincides with the period when human impact on the oceans has reached critical levels. It appears that this deep ocean civilization has recognized the growing threat to marine ecosystems and is working more actively to preserve them. The question that emerges from examining all these cases is not whether an advanced civilization exists in Earth's deep oceans, but rather what their ultimate intentions are regarding humanity. The evidence suggests they are not hostile, but rather protective of the planetary environment that both civilizations share. The technological demonstrations revealed through these disappearances indicate that this civilization possesses solutions to many of the environmental and energy challenges that currently threaten human civilization. Their methods of pollution neutralization, sustainable energy production, and ecosystem management could revolutionize human society if these technologies could be shared. But the selectivity of the disappearances suggests that this civilization is evaluating humanity's readiness to receive such advanced technology. They appear to be recruiting individuals who demonstrate understanding of environmental responsibility and scientific integrity, possibly building a cadre of humans who could serve as intermediaries between the two civilizations. The implications of these discoveries extend far beyond the scientific community. If an advanced civilization has been operating in Earth's oceans for centuries, it fundamentally changes our understanding of our planet's history and our place in it. We may not be the dominant intelligence on Earth, but rather junior partners in a planetary management system that has been operating long before human civilization developed. The deep ocean, which covers most of our planet's surface, may not be the empty frontier we have always assumed, but rather the domain of beings who have been quietly maintaining the conditions that allow all life on Earth to thrive. The increasing frequency of these encounters suggests that the time for open contact between our civilizations may be approaching. As we continue to explore these mysteries, one thing becomes clear. The ocean holds secrets that will fundamentally change how we understand our world and our future. The deep waters that have always seemed so alien and hostile may actually be home to guardians who have been protecting our planet's life support systems for longer than human history records. The evidence presented in these 30 cases suggests that we stand at a threshold. The choices we make regarding ocean conservation and environmental protection may determine whether we are invited to join this ancient civilization in their work, or whether we remain isolated on the surface, while they continue their efforts to maintain the planet despite our actions. In the deepest parts of our oceans, where sunlight has never penetrated and pressure would crush any human instantly, an intelligence far older and wiser than our own continues its work. Whether we will prove worthy of joining that work may be the most important question facing humanity as we move into an uncertain future where the health of our oceans will determine the survival of all life on Earth. The silence that follows these revelations is perhaps more profound than any sound the ocean has ever produced. As we reach the end of our journey through these deep-sea mysteries, we're left with questions that stretch far beyond the boundaries of what we thought we knew about our planet. What emerges from these 30 documented cases isn't just evidence of unexplained disappearances, it's a portrait of intelligence that has been operating beneath our notice for generations, maintaining systems that keep our planet habitable while we remained completely unaware of their existence. The scope of their operations suggests a level of environmental stewardship that puts human conservation efforts to shame. Consider the implications of what we've discovered. Every major ocean basin shows evidence of active management. Chemical processing stations that neutralize pollution faster than we can create it. Biological engineering projects that develop new species to handle environmental challenges we haven't even recognized yet. Manufacturing systems that create advanced materials from simple seawater, while leaving no environmental footprint. This isn't science fiction. This is the reality that emerges when you examine the evidence without the filters of what we think should be possible. The technology demonstrated in these cases operates on principles that could solve humanity's greatest challenges overnight. Clean energy that produces no waste, manufacturing that improves rather than degrades the environment, transportation systems that work with natural forces instead of fighting against them. But perhaps the most profound revelation is the patience these beings have shown. The evidence suggests they've been operating for centuries, possibly millennia, making gradual improvements to ocean systems while waiting for humanity to develop the wisdom necessary to recognize their work. They could have made contact at any time, could have revealed themselves and their technology decades ago. Instead, they chose to work quietly, maintaining the conditions that allow human civilization to exist, while we slowly learn to understand our impact on the planet. The acceleration in their activities over the past decade tells a different story. Climate change, ocean acidification, and massive pollution events have apparently triggered a more urgent response from these ocean guardians. The seafloor modifications are happening faster. The biological engineering projects are producing new species at an unprecedented rate. The chemical processing stations are working overtime to counteract human-caused damage. It's as if they've recognized that their subtle, long-term approach may no longer be sufficient. The damage we're causing to marine ecosystems has reached levels that require more direct intervention. The question is whether they'll continue working behind the scenes, or whether the time has come for open contact between our civilizations. The pattern of disappearances suggests they're already building bridges. The individuals who vanish aren't random victims. They're carefully selected professionals who possess the knowledge and ethical foundation necessary to understand what they're being shown. Marine biologists who grasp the complexity of ecosystem management. Engineers who can appreciate advanced technology without being overwhelmed by it. Environmental scientists who understand the urgency of the challenges facing our planet. These people aren't being abducted. They're being recruited. The evidence suggests they're being invited to participate in planetary management systems that operate on scales we can barely comprehend. The modifications made to their equipment, the enhancements to their research capabilities, the demonstrations of advanced technology, these are all part of an extended interview process. The beings responsible for these disappearances appear to be evaluating whether humanity is ready to join their efforts, or whether we'll continue to damage the very systems they've spent so long protecting. The choice may not be entirely ours to make. If human activities continue to threaten ocean health at current rates, these hidden guardians may be forced to take more direct action to protect the planetary systems they've maintained for so long. What would that action look like? The technological capabilities demonstrated in these cases suggest they could neutralize human industrial activity without harming human populations. They could shut down polluting facilities, disable destructive fishing operations, or render harmful chemicals inert before they reach the ocean. Their technology operates on principles that make human resistance meaningless, but everything in their behavior suggests they would prefer cooperation over confrontation. The careful way they've returned vessels and enhanced equipment indicates a desire to help rather than harm. The biological engineering projects that could benefit all marine life suggest a perspective that values all forms of life, including humanity. The modifications they've made to human technology consistently improve environmental compatibility while increasing performance. They're not just demonstrating their capabilities, they're showing us how our technology could evolve to become part of natural systems rather than fighting against them. Every enhancement they make is a lesson in sustainable engineering that we could apply to transform human civilization. The timing of these revelations couldn't be more critical. We stand at a crossroads where our choices regarding ocean conservation will determine not just the survival of marine ecosystems, but potentially our relationship with an intelligence that has been protecting those ecosystems for longer than human history records. The deep ocean, which we've always seen as a vast empty frontier waiting to be exploited, may actually be a carefully maintained preserve where ancient intelligence continues work that began before human civilization existed. Our increasing exploration of these depths isn't just scientific curiosity. It's an inadvertent first contact scenario that could determine the future of both civilizations. The evidence suggests that these ocean guardians are willing to share their knowledge and technology with humanity, but only if we demonstrate the wisdom and environmental responsibility necessary to use such capabilities without causing further damage. The disappearances may be their way of testing individual humans to determine whether our species has developed the maturity necessary for such cooperation. What would partnership with such a civilization look like? The technological demonstrations suggest possibilities that could transform human society overnight. Clean energy systems that work with natural forces, manufacturing processes that strengthen rather than degrade ecosystems, transportation networks that move through the planet's systems without disrupting them, biological engineering that could restore damaged environments and develop new species to handle environmental challenges. But such partnership would require fundamental changes in how humanity relates to the planet. We would need to abandon the idea that Earth exists for human exploitation and embrace our role as one species among many in a complex planetary ecosystem. We would need to develop the long-term perspective that characterizes these ocean guardians, thinking in terms of centuries rather than quarterly profits. The choice facing humanity may be simple: evolve or be bypassed. The ocean guardians have demonstrated that they can maintain planetary systems with or without human cooperation. They've been doing it for centuries while human civilization developed in complete ignorance of their efforts. If we prove incapable of the wisdom necessary for partnership, they'll likely continue their work while we remain isolated on the surface, gradually excluded from the planetary management systems that determine the future of life on Earth. But if we can demonstrate the environmental consciousness and scientific maturity they're looking for, we might be invited to participate in projects that dwarf anything human civilization has ever attempted. We might become junior partners in a planetary stewardship program that ensures the long-term survival of all life on Earth. The deep ocean has always held mysteries, but the mysteries we've explored tonight suggest that the greatest discovery in human history may not be finding life among the stars, but recognizing the intelligence that has been sharing our planet all along. In the crushing depths where we thought nothing could survive, where we assumed only simple life forms could exist, there may be civilizations that have mastered the art of living in harmony with planetary systems. As you drift off to sleep tonight, listening to these tales of deep-sea mysteries, remember that the ocean covers 70% of our planet's surface. Beneath those waves, in trenches deeper than mountains are tall, in abyssal plains where no sunlight has ever penetrated, something magnificent continues its ancient work. The next time you look out at the ocean, whether from a beach, a boat, or an airplane window, consider that you might be looking at the surface of the most sophisticated planetary management system ever created. Every wave that breaks on the shore, every current that moves through the water, every chemical balance that maintains life, all of it may be part of a vast network maintained by intelligence that has been protecting our world since long before humans learned to sail. In the deepest waters of our planet, where pressure would crush any human instantly and darkness reigns eternal, guardians continue their work. Whether we will prove worthy of joining that work, or whether we will remain forever on the surface while they maintain the conditions that allow our existence, depends on choices we make every day about how we treat the ocean that covers most of our world. The deep sea has spoken through these disappearances, through the evidence left behind, through the technology demonstrated and the modifications made. The message is clear: We are not alone on this planet, and the intelligence that shares it with us has been protecting the systems that sustain all life far longer than we have existed as a species. The ocean remembers everything, every ship that has ever sailed its surface, every life it has claimed, every secret it has swallowed into its depths. And perhaps most importantly, every moment when human ambition has pushed too far into realms that were never meant for us to explore. As we close this collection of deep-sea mysteries, one final pattern emerges that ties together all 30 cases we've examined tonight. It's not just about advanced technology or hidden civilizations. It's about boundaries. Natural boundaries that exist not just in the physical structure of our planet, but in the very fabric of what we're meant to understand about our place in the universe. Each disappearance we've explored represents a moment when human curiosity crossed a threshold. Dr. Elena Vasquez and her team pushed their scanning equipment into depths that revealed more than sonar readings. Captain Morrison's fishing vessel ventured over structures that had remained hidden for millennia. Dr. Marcus Chen descended to pressures that no human was meant to survive, only to discover that survival itself might have different definitions than we'd ever imagined. The technology recovered from these incidents tells a story of systems so advanced that they operate on principles we don't yet have words for. Energy that flows without loss, materials that strengthen under pressure instead of breaking, communication networks that span entire ocean basins without any visible infrastructure, manufacturing processes that improve the environment instead of degrading it. But perhaps the most unsettling revelation is how long these systems have been operating without our knowledge. Geological evidence suggests some of the seafloor modifications predate human civilization by thousands of years. While we were learning to farm, to build cities, to develop technology, something else was already managing the planetary systems that made our development possible. The acceleration in activity over recent decades tells us that our time of ignorance is ending. Whether by choice or necessity, the hidden intelligence of the deep ocean is making itself known. The question that remains is whether humanity is ready for what that contact might bring. Consider the implications of partnership with beings who think in geological timescales. Every decision they make is evaluated not just for its immediate effects, but for its impact over centuries or millennia. They've demonstrated technology that could solve our energy crisis, eliminate pollution, and restore damaged ecosystems overnight. But such gifts would come with responsibilities that human civilization has never faced. We would need to abandon the short-term thinking that has characterized human development. Quarterly profits would become meaningless when measured against decisions that affect planetary health for the next 1,000 years. National boundaries would seem arbitrary when dealing with ocean systems that span continents. The very concept of human dominance over nature would need to be replaced with recognition that we are one component in a much larger system. The deep-sea disappearances we've examined tonight may represent the beginning of humanity's greatest test. Not a test of our technology or our intelligence, but a test of our wisdom. Can we evolve beyond the destructive patterns that have brought us to this environmental crisis? Can we develop the perspective necessary to participate in planetary stewardship rather than planetary exploitation? The ocean guardians have been patient. They've maintained the conditions that allow human life to flourish, while we slowly learned about our impact on planetary systems. But their recent acceleration in activity suggests that patience may be reaching its limits. The damage we're causing to marine ecosystems has reached levels that threaten the very systems they've spent millennia perfecting. The choice facing humanity is becoming clear. We can continue on our current path, treating the ocean as a dumping ground and resource extraction site, until the Guardians are forced to take more direct action to protect planetary systems. Or we can recognize this moment as an opportunity to join a civilization that has already solved the problems that currently threaten our survival. The evidence suggests they're willing to teach us. Every piece of enhanced technology, every modification made to human equipment, every demonstration of advanced capabilities is an invitation to learn. They're showing us how our technology could evolve to become part of natural systems rather than fighting against them. But learning would require humility. It would mean acknowledging that human civilization, for all its achievements, is still in its infancy compared to intelligences that have been managing planetary systems since before our species existed. It would mean accepting that our role might not be to dominate the planet, but to participate in its careful maintenance. The deep ocean holds more than mysteries. It holds possibilities that could transform human civilization beyond recognition. Technologies that work with natural forces instead of against them. Manufacturing processes that strengthen ecosystems while producing what we need. Energy systems that enhance rather than degrade the environment. These possibilities exist in the crushing depths where human bodies cannot survive, maintained by intelligence that operates on scales we're only beginning to comprehend. Whether we gain access to these possibilities depends on choices we make about how we treat the ocean that covers most of our world. As you rest tonight, carried by these stories into sleep, remember that the ocean is not empty. Beneath the waves that lull you toward dreams, vast intelligences continue work that began before human history started. They maintain the chemical balances that keep the planet habitable. They manage the current systems that distribute heat around the globe. They develop new forms of life to handle environmental challenges we haven't yet recognized. The deep sea has shared its secrets through 30 cases of mysterious disappearances. Each story reveals another aspect of intelligence that operates beyond our understanding, but not beyond our reach. The ocean guardians have shown us what's possible when technology serves life rather than threatening it. In the deepest trenches of our world, where pressure would crush any human explorer and darkness has reigned since the planet formed, guardians continue their ancient work. They tend systems that maintain the conditions for all life on Earth. They develop solutions to problems we're only beginning to understand. They wait, with patience measured in geological time, for humanity to develop the wisdom necessary to join them in their work. The ocean remembers everything, and now it has shared its greatest secret with us. We are not alone on this planet. We never have been. The intelligence that shares Earth with us has been protecting the systems that sustain all life far longer than we have existed as a species. Whether we prove worthy of partnership with such intelligence may determine not just the future of human civilization, but the future of life itself on the only planet we have ever known. Rest now, carried by the rhythm of waves that have been shaped by intelligence older than mountains, deeper than our understanding, and more patient than time itself. In the morning, the choice of how we respond to these revelations will be ours to make.